Well, hey, welcome everyone, and thanks for joining the AI chicken or the AI egg. Today we're discussing which comes first. Do we use AI for GRC or do we govern the use of AI? When we talk about GRC, when we talk about this with GRC professionals, they're really excited on how to use AI and what it can do for all of their processes. But then they quickly realize that they need to govern the use of this, and the GRC program needs to govern AI within their organization. So our experts today are going to advise you on what you should do first. Maybe you just do everything all at once. So our three industry experts today are Michael Rasmussen. Michael is the father of GRC and chief pundit over at GRC 2020. Sam Abadir, who is our resident GRC expert at Krista, and John Michelsen. John's a leader in intuitive technology systems, the founder of Krista, and pretty much the founder of every great idea I hear lately. So, gentlemen, thanks for your time. And I look forward to learning about business integrated GRC and where it's going. So, Michael, you talk a lot about this business integrated GRC. Can you really start our discussion by explaining what that is and why it's so important for not only the risk professionals but for the companies and the ecosystems themselves?
Certainly. And so what we're talking about here is that an evolution of governance, risk, and compliance. I've defined 6 generations of GRC software. I've been called the father of GRC because going back to February 2002 on a cold, snowy day, the Chicago Office of Forestry Research, I defined and modeled a market for technology and labeled it governance, risk, and compliance, GRC. Now, I had a broad vision for GRC back in February 2002, but what also happened that year was Sarbanes-Oxley. And so the GRC 1.0 is what I refer to as the Sarbanes-Oxley captivity of GRC. Then we moved in about 2007 into what I call enterprise GRC, GRC 2.0, which is really more of my original vision in 2002 of what governance, risk, and compliance is. Well, it was GRC 2.0, enterprise GRC is about enabling those back office functions of risk, compliance, audit, security to work together. And then we moved into GRC 3.0, which I call GRC architecture. There could be a core platform, but there's nobody that does everything governance, risk, and compliance. It requires integration of other technologies, best of breed systems, into the business systems, to content. And so we had GRC architecture. Then about 2017, 2018, getting a lot of complaints on the legacy solutions that were out there that were broken, stuck on upgrades, cost a fortune to implement and maintain. So we entered the era of agile GRC, low code, no code solutions. So we're still in that era. But built on that agile GRC 4.0, we have cognitive GRC, GRC 5.0. And that's how do we leverage artificial intelligence like Krista.ai to extend governance, risk, and compliance and make it more effective, efficient, resilient, and agile. And we're moving, as you alluded to, towards what I call GRC 6.0, this business integrated GRC. How do we take GRC 4.0 and 5.0, that agile and cognitive GRC, and bake it more into the business and business processes, providing real-time context so that people can get governance, risk, and compliance questions answered when they need it, wherever they need it. And again, not only is agile GRC delivered in business integrated GRC, but also the cognitive piece of it, where we have that, chat bot type functions to interact with the GRC computer to interact with that. Just what Krista AI is delivering. So I think that sort of frames the discussion there on what I'm talking about.
So, Sam, if Michael is talking about the kind of the interactive systems, I mean, what's kind of a follow-up? Like what would you want to understand, in terms of managing risk more effectively using AI?
Well, as you're using and as a developer, former developer of these types of platforms, right? I started off my GRC journey in what Michael described as GRC 4.0, the low code, no code ability to develop this. When I was at a different software company, we developed this, and I also had the pleasure there of being on my and leading the customer advisory board. I was the liaison between the company and the customer advisory board that helped us identify what was needed in the product. Time and time again, what was needed in these tools was the ability to read documents, the ability to get data from other systems, the ability to answer all sorts of questionnaires, gather information for audits and process audits, things like that. The tools that Michael's talking about for GRC 4.0 were actually fantastic tools once you got the data inside the tool. The trouble was getting data in the tool. Regular users had trouble getting data in the tool. Casual users had very much difficulty even logging in and navigating through those tools. So, when I think about AI and using AI to manage risk more effectively, it's really about breaking down those barriers, that friction between the people and the software, or the friction between the people and the tons of documents. I guess that's also software, whether it's PDFs or Excels or things like that, to actually make GRC work effectively.
Yeah, and we love this as a vision that Michael has laid out, because we just really think that it fits not only what that particular industry needs, it really speaks to what we see every segment of the business needs. It's got to be able to much more rapidly integrate human capabilities, system capabilities, and AI capabilities, and put them to work in a real-time fashion. So Michael alluded to this notion of GRC being an integrated part of a business process, not essentially an after-the-fact batch job that figures out you did it wrong, right? What you really want is you want to weave essentially audit, compliance, controls, whatever, into the execution of the way the business functions. And we see that as a natural fit for what we are attempting to do, which is, we literally call Krista a fabric, right? In many of our analogies, that we want to weave human, system, and AI capabilities together in order to achieve outcomes. And one of those things that has to be woven into that whole fabric is, of course, how do we govern this and appropriately handle it? And so with the 15 plus some odd AI capabilities and unbelievable number of connectivity to systems and people we already have, it's a natural fit for us to help in this particular area.
Yeah, Sam, it sounds like, with the advancements that John was talking about and all the built-in AI, it sounds like AI's potential is really like undeniable for this, right? It's a slam dunk, right? But what risks may it introduce, right? Do people ask about that? And like, how do risk management professionals govern AI once it's being introduced? Because you're going to have to use it to take care of all these processes and produce like better outcomes that John was saying.
Yeah, AI is really interesting because it's unlike the no-code, low-code solutions that from GRC 4.0, where you can drag and drop a field or something like that. When people are using generative AI, kind of in an ungoverned way, they think that they actually have those capabilities. But what we really have to be worried about is data security, data privacy, and a new twist on data integrity, right? So data security and data privacy, if you just go out to OpenAI or Gemini, .google.com or something like that, the terms of service actually say they're going to use your data to expand and retrain their large language models, things like that. So it becomes a very dangerous proposition to do. It probably goes against every single acceptable use policy of every single company that's actually out there. I'm actually surprised that those things aren't black labeled and that you can't leverage those from your work machines. Data integrity, though, is a new thing, right? Because AI is designed to basically make things up. It's called hallucination. It fills in the blanks for you because it's trained on everything else. And I can't imagine having to use AI or artificial natural language processing and artificial intelligence and generative AI all together to do something very complex like answer a third-party risk assessment and then have it make up answers in the end, right? It just does nobody any good at all. These are real concerns that people have and real risks that need to be managed and need to be governed.
Sam, that's true. And yet we use AI capabilities, including some Gen AI capabilities, to actually fill out assessments and do that. Then the burning question would be, are we crazy or have we done something interesting that makes that really work? And of course, we've done the latter. There are plenty of challenges in making sure, whether it's generative AI or any of the other AI capabilities that you'd want to leverage. The world that makes this so interesting, or the thing that makes this so interesting, is we're in a non-deterministic world. We're used to software being an if then else type of proposition, and it could be a bug and not do what we wanted, but it certainly couldn't be exactly what we intended to do, and yet it gave us the wrong result, right? I mean, that's the odd thing, right? So yes, but there are lots of challenges there, and in time, hopefully in this session, we'll be able to talk to some of the ways we solve for that. But it's been an incredible journey. By the way, I put my first NLP software on the market in 1992, so I've definitely understood very well the non-deterministic systems and the way that this whole thing works. But the challenges are there, but the opportunities are fantastic as well.
All right, perfect. So, Michael, the non-deterministic world, that seems different than like governance, risk, and compliance. What's, from your research, you talk about the governance of AI quite a bit. You've got some papers describing the critical capabilities required to, govern AI. What do you see that's necessary for governing AI, and what do we need to do?
Yeah. And so to provide the broader perspective, there's two sides here, sort of yin and yang. You've got what I call cognitive GRC that I talked about already, the use of AI for governance, risk, and compliance, and some great use cases that Krista.ai is delivering there. But then you have AI GRC, the governance, risk, and compliance of AI itself. I mean, if you look at it, artificial intelligence is powerful. AI can impact significant change with minimal effort, but it's also complex. One of the primary challenges in using AI is the complexity of its implementation. But now we also have the simplicity of AI. Yes, I'm sort of contradicting myself. It's complex, but it's also simple in the fact that, it's becoming ubiquitous. I mean, you can go out to ChatGPT and easily use it. So that complexity is certainly a challenge, but the recent AI gold rush, particularly with generative AI, we have the opposite concern of simplicity and making that very accessible. And is it being used properly? AI can also mean productivity. AI is not here to replace subject matter expertise, but to extend it. So for many cases of AI use cases, there are productivity enhancements that we can leverage. But there's data privacy concerns. There's potential bias, particularly with the data coming in, if it might lead to bias. There's the issue of opaqueness in models and growing concern about legal liability and AI's use within the organization. And so we got a variety of privacy and data protection and even leakage type concerns with AI, bias and discrimination, with growing liability and accountability, and concerns about intellectual property rights and security, which leads to a growing array of laws, the most recent being the EU AI Act, and it being the most comprehensive law impacting things around the world. But when you have artificial intelligence, you can break it down into three primary sections: the input component of the data coming in, and bad data coming in means bad data going out. You have that processing component and that reporting and output component. But AI is built for specific purposes. And we might have flaws and issues in our AI models because of a dynamic and changing environment. If that AI model was written for a very specific use case, and the world, the business has changed since then, and the data coming in or the model itself hasn't evolved to keep up with that, we have concerns there. You've got the issues of lack of governance control within AI. As people can go out and use it, or take models that have been implemented and use them for different purposes they've never been validated and tested for. And we have those type of challenges. We have the challenges of undiscovered model flaws and misuse of models and misrepresentation of reality and so many things. So the bottom line here is that artificial intelligence, AI, is rapidly growing in the variety, complexity, and use within organizations. It is quickly moving from, a tactical focus to a strategic pillar that provides the infrastructure and backbone for strategy and decisions at all levels of the organization throughout the organization. Time and evolution of AI, if it's left ungoverned, brings forth loss and potential disaster and exposure. But if used correctly, it can provide extensive value to the organization. Organizations then now need to provide a structured approach for AI governance, risk management, and compliance that addresses the overall AI lifecycle and use within the organization. AI governance, to me, involves overseeing and guiding AI-related initiatives and the use of AI technology and models to ensure alignment with the organizational objectives and values. Proper governance of AI implies establishing clear AI policies, procedures, and decision-making frameworks that help the organization reliably achieve its objectives. AI risk management refers to identifying, assessing, and managing the uncertainty associated with developing, using, and maintaining AI technologies. These risks range from both technical aspects, such as security breaches or system failure, to ethical aspects, like algorithmic or bias or privacy infringement. And then you have AI compliance, which is that critical aspect of implementing AI. Are we using it within the ethical and regulatory and legal boundaries of the organization? So organizations need to have a firm foundation on AI GRC, the governance, risk, and compliance of AI. And that involves oversight, where the organization needs to have a well-defined AI governance framework to manage AI use that brings together the right roles, policies, and inventory of AI to be able to manage the AI lifecycle, that end-to-end AI management lifecycle, to manage and govern AI use from development and acquisition of models for AI throughout their use in the environment, and including the maintenance and retirement of AI models. And this requires a strong and robust AI GRC architecture that can effectively manage AI in today's complex and dynamic, changing business environment with technology. So in that context of the overall technology aspects, it's absolutely critical that we have technology that can maintain the inventory of the models, what's being used and acquired, the validation of those models, the controls put in place around those models, the ongoing monitoring, use, and assurance and maintenance, and even retirement of those models themselves, wherever they're at. That it's absolutely critical. And some of the critical capabilities within technology to do this is the overall AI model management, from that inventory and life cycle to the validation and testing to the retirement, the projects and validations, the approval, the change management, the risk and controls, decommissioning, the role of assurance and on all this. And of course, the basic things like, user experience and all those elements.
Perfect. That's a really, really good description. You outlined a lot of different capabilities. So, John, as a guy that develops the technology that drives these processes, you've been doing this for years. I think your first NLP project was still when I was in college, right before the internet. So what has really changed to enable people to manage and produce better outcomes on, what Michael was describing? What are the big changes that you think that are just amazing, and, maybe some that are just table stakes that people, may not realize?
Yeah. So what Michael just laid out very well is that there are an enormous number of additional functions, decisions that need to be made, policies that need to be set, and then processes that need to be executed in. The weaving of that set of governance policies and steps that need to be taken and activities into pretty much every other facet of the business, because every part of the company that you're working for right now is going to or is already embracing AI in a big way. And they're doing it not as science projects anymore. There's been a fair amount of investigation of AI for quite some time, and some very, very targeted point solution style use of AI for many years. But there's a wholesale AI strategy now being articulated. And of course, cybersecurity and governance are typically the things that come after instead of as a part of, which is always frustrating to me. But we need to get these things as close to each other as possible, because we'd rather not be apologizing for how we made a mistake, but instead proactively solving the problems that we know are going to be coming up. You just heard Michael describe a number of them. The irony here if there, and thus I guess the title of our session here, AI is a very powerful tool for doing a lot of the work of governing AI. That's maybe the irony here. And when I look at, well, wait a minute, how can this, you're not going to get an extra 5 folks on your team because now you're covering the AI space as well, are you? You're going to be expected to figure out a strategy for how to make all of this work mostly within the confines of the human capital you already have. So this gets back to, it's not here to take away your job. It's actually here to make you more powerful. And the more powerful is, AI can classify activities for you. AI can identify anomalies for you. AI can make sure that it's taking a look at everything because it can read at machine speed at a vast amount of content that you didn't have to, and can be identified as either interesting for you or not interesting for you. And of course, when the AI capabilities, that and many others that I could describe, are woven into a platform that is also integrated equally well into systems and integrates people, now we're talking about a superpower. Right now we're saying, okay, I want to be in the approval process of any time we access anything that's considered sensitive data when we're building a model, and I need to capture what is the purpose for a period of time, and I need to see each of the builds. That is something that is minutes to hours to accomplish in something like Krista. That is just a pipe dream if you're not empowered with the technology to be able to do something like that, because you individually are not going to be able to carry out the statement I just made. But a platform like Krista at your disposal can. And if any of the conditions that you are looking for, right, by policy, by even just by interest, I just want to be aware of, what are we doing with our customers' PII, right? What are we doing? I'm going to be asked at some point. I need to be aware. Those are the kinds of things that an AI-empowered platform can really make happen. So that's why we're in this quandary, right? Is it govern AI or is it use AI? And I think we need to find a way to achieve both.
If you don't mind me adding a little bit there, but global financial services firms are dealing with 257 regulatory change events every business day, coming from 1,217 regulators around the world. In the EH&S and ESG space, there's 297 regulatory change events every business day, according to NHISA. That's a lot of legal regulatory change. If you print off the UK's, the FCA rule book, I've never tested it, but I'm told it's a stack of paper 6 feet tall. That's a lot of paper. Even if it's 6 inches tall, that's a lot of laws and regulations. If you print off the U.S. Code of Federal Regulations and stack it end to end, it's longer than a marathon. It's more than 28 miles. That's a lot of paper. How long would it take you to read that? Ages, months to years. Now, a machine can read it, map it, organize it in minutes. And so when it goes to getting questions answered, not just on the regulation, but on the corporate policies and procedures and all this stuff, if you have questions on risk and compliance and controls, to get an authoritative answer, it could take a long time trying to dissect and disseminate all that information from the regulations to the policies in the organization. But a machine like Krista AI can provide that pretty much instantly.
That's right. And then Michael, you said it perfectly. And then to add to that's all of the static printed content. Now we have real-time transactions. And we've got to evaluate, is this a transaction we're about to enter into in conflict with any of the stuff that we just said measures in the miles high if you're in the US and you're covered by any of that regulation? And the answer to that also, as a real-time activity, super powerful to say, instead of after the fact, we realize we made a mistake executing this transaction, which is what a GRC after the fact is. Integrated GRC is, wait a minute, we're going to evaluate this against our policy as a part of executing this process. We're going to be full well knowing that we evaluated it. And again, with transparency in the AI itself, we're going to know what source material was referenced and what contributed to our determination that this is or isn't an appropriate transaction for us to execute. By appropriate transaction, I mean anything from we just signed a contract to obligate ourselves to XYZ, or we just sold a particular thing to somebody, right? No, whatever it happens to be. These activities that happen are what GRC is all about. Writing all of that stuff is so that it can happen when we actually do things. Integrating into the doing things is where I think we get the most value, not only from GRC, but it becomes a phrase that I've used before, that the nervous system of a business or an organization is essentially its GRC function. And that nervous system can't be after the fact. Otherwise, you've already burned your fingers, right? I mean, the whole notion of why we have an autonomic system is so that when we have the immediate reaction that we need, and essentially the way our body functions, the body of an organization needs to function that same way, that we're not going to let our fingers stay sitting on something hot. We have to do that at machine speed, right? We've got to get that activity executed at machine speed. So I'm really excited about how AI capabilities woven into those set of business activities, not only to carry them out, but also obviously to carry out the GRC function, can really be an empowering activity for a business.
I'm quite convinced now that you cannot, just from this conversation, you cannot divorce the governance of AI from the operations of AI. AI operations and AI governance, in order to have effective governance, need to be intermingled, intertwined, and governed at real time.
Well, frankly, Sam, we've spent enough time in operations of systems world to realize that that's in fact the case, right? I would not know how to bring on a new DevOps engineer and not start with, here are the policies, here are the procedures, here are thou shalts and thou shalt nots. It has to start there, right? And just like in the DevOps world, had we not focused so much as a practice to introduce automation, we would have never had a chance at actually any of those thou shalts and thou shalt nots actually being done, or those policies being implemented. Because in the rush of too much work and not enough people, it's not like we're going to reread the rule book, whether it's 6 inches or 6 feet tall, right, Michael? We're not going to go read the rule book every time we're about to do something to make sure that we're about to do it. No, but if you encode what that organization determines is right and wrong into the execution of the software or the automation of whatever kind, then you get it automatically, right? So we've got to find that mechanism so that the team of people that represent the GRC function in an organization essentially have the ability to multiply their effectiveness by an exponential number, and be able to be that effective and that aware, I think is a fantastic opportunity.
Yeah, what Michael called yin and yang and what we call chicken and egg are actually becoming one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Sam, if like John was saying, in the DevOps world, there's tons of automation, but that ironically, like a lot of processes aren't automated across all the automation tools. But in GRC, is it earlier in the life cycle? So if risk professionals are hearing all this AI stuff, do they fear the technology? Like what are they going to do? Like, they're going to have better tools to do more, to produce more insights. Where is their head at?
Their head's in a number of different spaces from the conversations I've had. Some people are looking at it in a very focused way, right? Help me quickly identify what the inherent risk is of this, which assumes that I'm just going to continue doing things the way that I have. And then boom, something pops up and says your inherent risk of this is high. Other people are looking at it as, and I tend to think we are, looking at it as different levels of orchestration of the process, right? If your suppliers are sitting in your procurement system and your risk management tool is over here, and then you also have a third-party portal that's over there, how do we actually take people out of the loop until we actually need them in the loop? How do we review and monitor the risk? How do we even change the dynamic nature between the business and the third parties themselves, if we're just talking about third party risk, or the business and internal audit, or anything like that? How do we change how they actually work together by using AI and process automation in a combined way. We've been actually working with some really forward-thinking companies who have done the business integrated risk. They actually review every medical transaction that comes through a system to look for anomalies to make sure that they aren't having billing leakage. And instead of having a spot audit 3 months after the event, John said, burn yourself, right? That's burning yourself. Instead of having that out after the event, we're applying the controls real time. So as they're processing, I say real time, every day they get processed in a batch. But I only have 1 day now to look through 100% of my transactions to look for revenue leakage. And it's quite successful, right? So instead of the auditors begging people for transactions or samples of them, Krista just does it and then brings people in the loop when an anomaly happens.
Which keeps them within the window of being able to change that or amend it in plenty of time.
Before going to the insurance company and things like that. It's less costly all around.
Yeah, that seems opposite of, when you get a text on your mobile phone, like, hey, did you make this credit card transaction? That almost, that is within seconds. I know it's within a minute, right? That they're looking for anomalies. Wow, that's a big gap. So Michael, from a learning curve of using AI for GRC, how has risk management evolved as a career path, or what are some of the continuous learning opportunities that people can take advantage of?
I mean, right now, risk professionals, GRC professionals need to clearly understand what's available to them out there for tools to leverage AI for governance, risk, and compliance, but also how that technology can be leveraged, like, what John and Sam have mentioned, to be actually symbiotic in governing itself too, in that context. The risk profession, to me, should not be scared of AI. They should embrace AI, but do so in a way that is the proper context for that role and function in the organization. Proper use of AI within a risk function extends subject matter expertise. It doesn't replace it. What GRC professional out there is sitting around saying, I got nothing to do? Whether it's risk, compliance, audit departments, we're not getting enough done. AI can help us get more done and be more proactive in risk management instead of reactive in chasing things and fighting fires. And AI can help us better manage risk with the subject matter expertise we have in-house right now.
Can I add something to that, if you don't mind? I was reading an article from an audit from a guy at the Federal Reserve. His name is Tony De Silva, and he said something that constantly plagues banks in their risk department is the inexperience that's there. And he actually called out quite specifically, it's the tedious tasks that keep. It's the excitement of managing risk that brings them in, but the tedious tasks of just sorting through SOC documents or sorting through processes or Control F looking for something, those really tedious processes make people leave that part of the profession and go somewhere else. So, what Michael said about the career advancement, we actually need people to enter the career more and stay there more. And a tool like artificial intelligence used effectively and used in a trustworthy, one that you can actually trust and use, will certainly keep that excitement of risk management and allow people to grow even more.
Yeah, I imagine if there are tools available when you show up for work, it's completely different than if you implement the new tools that you're already when you're already there, right? I mean, it would be the culture would be totally different. And that would just take leadership to get on top of the technology and say, hey, we have to do something, no matter what, because we talked about what should come first, using AI for GRC or governing AI. It sounds like it's a little bit of both. So Sam, let's give everyone that's watching the recording some takeaways. Like what concrete things could they do in terms of if they are evaluating AI, if they have AI? What's your advice?
My advice is look for things that are going to have a really good user experience. And that user experience is extending beyond, what's the layout of the page look like? You can move the user experience completely to voice or to phone or to chat using the tools that you already have. The other big piece is look at, two big pieces. One, look at the limitations of the tools that you have. Go try to put in the Federal Acquisition Regulation, or FAR, or the regulations that Michael was talking about. Try to put that into ChatGPT and ask it to summarize it. There are big limitations to using those tools. You need to have some type of thing that's going to allow you to do the job that you need. I mean, if somebody gives you 3,000 pages of documents to summarize, you need to be able to do that in a comprehensive way. But then lastly, my piece of advice is make sure that the tools you're using give you that governance capabilities that Michael was talking about.
All right, and then John, back to you. What are some critical takeaways from a technology perspective or from a user perspective? Or, I mean, you seem to have the best insight, right? Because you get your hands dirty and still code all these platforms. So what should the risk professionals take a look at?
Well, at one step up from there, I think just have the awareness that the unbelievable pace of technology evolution and the last 15 months of this great awakening in AI and the adoption of said is actually going to look nothing compared to 36 months from now. The pace will only quicken. The necessity to deal with an ever-changing and increasingly changing environment from a tech perspective will only increase. What we're talking about GRC on fairly pedestrian terms right now. We're going to be interacting with humanoids and robots. Almost every one of us in a business context can constantly very soon. And the physical world is about to be inundated with automation and AI in a way that it has not yet seen, right? So there are enormous waves of dramatic change still yet on the horizon for us. We have to find the approach to how to integrate technology that is so much faster and yet governed, right? Because like I said a minute ago, we typically deploy it, then deal with the security and governance issues we just created in so doing. We really have to find a way to deliver all of those three things at the same time, because we're getting so fast at the delivery of it that bad actors or unfortunate circumstances are way too well equipped to do us harm. So bringing all of these things together, it's about learning how to adapt to technology faster. And the organizations that do it 24 months from now will look completely different than ones that don't. So I would say that's what to look for. And for the function of a risk professional to be, I'm trying to get us to deliver things faster. I'm not the organization of no, I'm the organization of how, right? I am trying to get to how. That's that. It's not, I'm trying to stop you. It's, I'm trying to get you there so that you don't lose your job and so that I don't lose mine. And that goes over really well, right? Especially if you carry with you the awareness that if you don't solve it now at whatever number of units of speed we're at right now, it's going to be 10x that in literally months. So deal with this now. And Michael, I'd love to hear your perspective on this.
Yeah, I mean, organizations that embrace this, and I'm not just saying blindly embrace it, but approach this, structured and logically with proper controls and things in place, are the ones that are going to lead. The GRC professionals that do that are the ones that are going to lead their careers in this, and in that context, the organizations that adopt AI and leverage it are the ones that are going to lead in their industries. But again, it not haphazardly, done properly with the proper governance of it.
Yeah, that's excellent advice. It's going to be really, really interesting, John. If you're putting the 36 months out there, I'm going to start counting today. So I look forward to that.
You got it.
But thanks for everyone for joining us and listening to our webinar. It's been enlightening, AI for GRC and GRC for AI. If you have follow-up questions for Michael, John, or Sam, please reach out on LinkedIn. All of them are really active on the platform, and we look forward to seeing you guys next time. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, everybody.